Chapter 14. The last of it? Dr. Copper looked down from his bunk with bloodshot, saddened eyes. 14 of them. McCready nodded shortly. In some ways, if only we could have permanently prevented their spreading, I'd like to have even the imitations back. Commander Gary, Conant, Dutton, Clark. Where are they taking those things? Copper nodded to the stretcher Barkley and Norris were carrying out. Outside. Outside on the ice where they've got 15 smashed crates, half a ton of coal, and presently we'll add 10 gallons of kerosene. We've dumped acid on every spilled drop, every torn fragment. We're going to incinerate those. Sounds like a good plan. Copper nodded wearily. I wonder, you haven't said whether Blair... McCready started. We forgot him. We had so much else. I wonder, do you suppose we can cure him now? If... began Dr. Copper, and stopped meaningly. McCready started a second time. Even a madman, it imitated Kinner and his praying hysteria. McCready turned toward Van Wall at the long table. Van, we've got to make an expedition to Blair's shack. Van looked up sharply. The frown of worry faded for an instant in surprised remembrance. Then he rose, nodded. Barkley better go along. He applied the lashings and may figure out how to get in without frightening Blair too much. 3/4 of an hour, through -37 degrees cold, while the aurora curtain bellied overhead. The twilight was nearly 12 hours long, flaming in the north on snow like white, crystalline sand under their skis. A 5-mile wind piled it in drift lines pointing off to the northwest. 3/4 of an hour to reach the snow-buried shack. No smoke came from the little shack, and the men hastened. Blair! Barkley roared into the wind, and when he was still 100 yards away, Blair! Shut up, said McCready softly. And hurry, he may be trying a lone hike. McCready softly. And hurry, he may be trying a lone hike. If we have to go after him, no planes, the tractor's disabled. Wouldn't a monster have the stamina a man has? A broken leg wouldn't stop it for more than a minute, McCready pointed out. Barkley gasped suddenly and pointed aloft. Dim in the twilit sky, a winged thing circled in curves of indescribable grace and ease. Great white wings tipped gently, and the bird swept over them in silent curiosity. Albatross, Barkley said softly. First of the season, and wandering way inland for some reason. If a monster's loose... Norris bent down on the ice and tore hurriedly at his heavy, wind-proof clothing. He straightened, his coat flapping open, a grim blue-metalled weapon in his hand. It roared a challenge to the white silence of Antarctica. The thing in the air screamed hoarsely. Its great wings worked frantically as a dozen feathers floated down from its tail. Norris fired again. The bird was moving swiftly now, but in an almost straight line of retreat. It screamed again. More feathers dropped, and with beating wings it soared behind the ridge of pressure ice, to vanish. Norris hurried after the others. It won't come back, he panted. Barkley cautioned him to silence, pointing. A curiously, fiercely blue light beat out from the cracks of the shack's door. A very low, soft humming sounded inside, a low, soft humming and clink of tools, the very sound somehow bearing a message of frantic haste. McCready's face paled. Lord help us if that thing has... He grabbed Barkley's shoulder and made snipping motions with his fingers, pointing toward the lacing of control cables that held the door. Barkley drew the wire cutters from his pocket and kneeled soundlessly at the door. The snap and twang of cut wires made an unbearable racket in the utter quiet of the Antarctic hush. There was only that strange, sweetly soft hum from within the shack, and the queerly, hectically clipped clicking and rattling of tools to drown their noises. McCready peered through a crack in the door. His breath sucked in huskily, and his great fingers clamped cruelly on Barkley's shoulder. The meteorologist backed down. It isn't he explained very softly. "Blair, it's kneeling on something on the bunk, something that keeps lifting. Whatever it's working on is a thing like a knapsack, and it lifts." "All at once," Barclay said grimly. "No. Norris, hang back and get that iron of yours out. It may have weapons." Together, Barclay's powerful body and MacReady's giant strength struck the door. Inside, the bunk jammed against the door, screeched madly, and crackled into kindling. The door flung down from broken hinges, the patched lumber of the doorpost dropping inward. Like a blue rubber ball, the thing bounced up. One of its 4 tentacle-like arms looped out like a striking snake. In a 7-tentacled hand a 6-inch pencil of winking, shining metal glinted and swung upward to face them. Its line-thin lips twitched back from snake-like fangs in a grin of hate, red eyes blazing. Norris's revolver thundered in the confined space. The hate-washed face twitched in agony. The looping tentacle snatched back. The silvery thing in its hand was a smashed ruin of metal. The 7-tentacled hand became a mass of mangled flesh oozing greenish-yellow ichor. The revolver thundered 3 times more. Dark holes drilled each of the 3 eyes before Norris hurled the empty weapon against its face. The thing screamed in feral hate, a lashing tentacle wiping at blinded eyes. For a moment it crawled on the floor, savage tentacles lashing out, the body twitching. Then it staggered up again, blinded eyes working, boiling hideously, the crushed flesh sloughing away in sodden gobbets. Barclay lurched to his feet and drove forward with an ice axe. The flat of the weighty thing crushed against the side of the head. Again the unkillable monster went down. The tentacles lashed out, and suddenly Barclay fell to his feet in the grip of a living, livid rope. The thing dissolved as he held it, a white-hot band that ate into the flesh of his hands like living fire. Frantically he tore the stuff from him, held his hands where they could not be reached. The blind thing felt and ripped at the tough, heavy, wind-proof cloth, seeking flesh it could convert. The huge blowtorch MacReady had brought coughed solemnly. Abruptly it rumbled disapproval throatily. Then it laughed gurglingly, and thrust out a blue-white, 3-foot tongue. The thing on the floor shrieked, flailed out blindly with tentacles that writhed and withered in the bubbling wrath of the blowtorch. It crawled and turned on the floor. It shrieked and hobbled madly, but always MacReady held the blowtorch on the face, the dead eyes burning and bubbling uselessly. Frantically the thing crawled and howled. A tentacle sprouted a savage talon, and crisped in the flame. Steadily MacReady moved with a planned, grim campaign. Helpless, maddened, the thing retreated from the grunting torch, the caressing, licking tongue. For a moment it rebelled, squalling in inhuman hatred at the touch of the icy snow. Then it fell back before the charring breath of the torch, the stench of its flesh bathing it. Hopelessly it retreated, on and on across the Antarctic snow. The bitter wind swept over it, twisting the torch tongue. Vainly it flopped, a trail of oily, stinking smoke bubbling away from it. MacReady walked back toward the shack silently. Barclay met him at the door. No more? The giant meteorologist asked grimly. Barclay shook his head. No more. It didn't split. It had other things to talk about, MacReady assured him. When I left it, it was a glowing coal. What was it doing? Norris laughed shortly. Wise boys we are, smash magneto so planes won't work. Rip the boiler tubing out of the tractors and leave that thing alone for a week in this shack, alone and undisturbed. MacReady looked in at the shack more carefully. The air, despite the ripped odor, was hot and humid. On a table at the far end of the room rested a thing of coiled wires and small magnets, glass tubing and radio tubes. At the center a block of rough stone rested. From the center of the block came the light that flooded the place, the fiercely blue light bluer than the glare of an electric arc, and from it came the sweetly soft hum. Off to one side was another mechanism of crystal glass, blown with an incredible neatness and delicacy, metal plates, and a queer, shimmery sphere of insubstantiability. "What is that?" MacReady moved nearer. Norris grunted. "Leave it for investigation, but I can guess pretty well that's atomic power. The stuff to the left, that's a neat little thing for doing what men have been trying to do with 100-ton cyclotrons and so forth. It separates neutrons from heavy water, which he was getting from the surrounding ice." "Where did he get all... Oh, of course, a monster couldn't be locked in or out. He's been through the apparatus caches." MacReady stared at the apparatus. "Lord, what minds that race must have." "The shimmery sphere, I think it's a sphere of pure force. Neutrons can pass through any matter, and he wanted a supply reservoir of neutrons. Just protect neutrons against silica, calcium, beryllium, almost anything, and the atomic energy is released. That thing is an atomic generator." MacReady plucked a thermometer from his coat. "It's 120 degrees in here despite the open door. Our clothes have kept the heat out to an extent, but I'm sweating now." Norris nodded. "The light's cold, I found that, but it gives off heat to warm the place through that coil." He had all the power in the world. He could keep it warm and pleasant as his race thought of warmth and pleasantness. Did you notice the light, the color of it? MacReady nodded. "Beyond the stars is the answer. From beyond the stars, from a hotter planet that circled a brighter, bluer sun, they came." MacReady glanced out the door toward the blasted, smoke-stained trail that flopped and wandered blindly off across the drift. "There won't be any more coming, I guess. Sheer accident it landed here, and that was 20 million years ago. What did it do all that for?" He nodded toward the apparatus. Barkley laughed softly. "Did you notice what it was working on when we came? Look." He pointed toward the ceiling of the shack. Like a knapsack made of flattened coffee tins with dangling cloth straps and leather belts, the mechanism clung to the ceiling. A tiny, glaring heart of supernal flame burned in it, yet burned through the ceiling's wood without scorching it. Barkley walked over to it, grasped two of the dangling straps in his hands, and pulled it down with an effort. He strapped it about his body. A slight jump carried him in a weirdly slow arc across the room. "Anti-gravity," said MacReady softly. "Anti-gravity," Norris nodded. "Yes, we had 'em stopped with no planes and no birds. The birds hadn't come, but it had coffee tins and radio parts and glass in the machine shop at night. And a whole week all to itself. America is a single jump, with anti-gravity powered by the atomic energy of matter. We had 'em stopped. Another half hour, it was just tightening these straps on the device so it could wear it, and we'd have stayed in Antarctica and shot down any moving thing that came from the rest of the world." "The albatross," MacReady said softly. "Do you suppose—" Was this thing almost finished? With that death weapon it held in its hand? No, by the grace of God, who evidently does hear very well, even down here, and the margin of half an hour, we keep our world. And the planets of the system, too. Anti-gravity, you know, and atomic power. Because they came from another sun, a star beyond the stars. They came from a world with a bluer sun."